Scott has asked me to talk for, I think he allocated me 10 minutes, of which he said 30 seconds was going to be introduction and 2 minutes was going to be questions. So I've got 6.5 minutes to talk about transformative innovation. So we're going to get going at a pretty rapid pace. I'm only going to talk very briefly about a certain number of topics. The first thing I thought I'd do when I was thinking about this product is to think back 10 years. Where is technology going to be in 10 years? Well, a vantage point could be where were we 10 years ago? So I did a web search on what new technology was shown in 2007, and the first thing I came up with was the Kindle, the electronic reader. The next thing was a continuous glucose monitoring system that Abbott had produced that was the revolutionary in terms of continuous glucose monitoring. And then the third one I got, which was in my mind originally, was the device that probably all of you have in your pockets now, or most of you have, and that's the smartphone. In 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone. It was the revolutionary product for transforming the way the world communicates. So in 10 years, we've had many iterations of smartphones from a number of different manufacturers, and they're now starting to find their way into health innovation. Many health systems around the world are now having smartphones or iPads or equivalent technologies in their daily use. Another thing I was thinking about was where are we in terms of our health challenges, and I don't know how many people have seen this book, The 100-Year Life, but the increasing life expectancy is going to have severe or significant societal transformational impact over the next years. So our life expectancy is improving, and I quite like this graph. Think of many things in the healthcare system, the average life expectancy, the number of disease conditions that we're seeing, the cost to the healthcare system. Over time, it's increasing and starting to increase exponentially. So as a healthcare environment, we really need to be focusing on how we can manage our healthcare systems, and technology has great promise, and I would also challenge there's great hope that technology can make a significant impact on the provision of healthcare into the future. In the interest of time, I'm only going to focus on one area, and that's, I've chosen to choose diagnostics. Those in the audience who are Star Trek fans will remember the tricorder, this magical wand that Scotty would wave over people and would instantly give a diagnosis and recommendations for therapy. The tricorder is now starting to become a reality. So in 2012, the X Prize group announced a competition with a $10 million prize bucket, 10 million US dollars that is, not New Zealand dollars, for the organization that could devise a way of capturing, diagnosing patients and medical conditions better than a panel of experts. Well, last month the award was announced, the first prize winner was announced, and it went to a group out of Philadelphia who created a product called Dexter. Why I'd like to talk about this is the X Prize initiative encouraged more than 300 groups around the world to start looking into ways of diagnosing conditions. So with Dexter, it would measure there's the group collecting their check for $2.5 million US as their first prize, so I'm sure they were very happy. It's actually interesting, these people all had day jobs, so this was all done on the side. They were competing against many other quite large global corporations, but there's actually 4 siblings, 4 brothers and a sister, with a team that actually won this prize. But Dexter monitors the health in the home. So the idea is that people, actually not even patients, individuals would have this, that would be monitored. It would be using an artificial intelligence engine to make decisions about the care of the patient and the diagnostic information, and it would be sharing that information as required with the healthcare system. So just imagine how something like this in 10 years is going to transform the way that healthcare is provided. It's going to be quite transformational. I wanted to change gears a little bit now and go back on a kind of a historical walk about how, and my thinking here is how can New Zealand play? I've been talking about Dexter, which is a US initiative, but how can New Zealand play in this whole area of innovation? And some people in the room, probably not many of the people in the room, are aware of this individual. This is a professor from the University of Canterbury who in the 1970s invented CT. So you may not know that computer tomography was actually invented in New Zealand. For the purposes of global recognition, it was invented independently at the same time in the UK by Sir Godfrey Hounsfield, and he published first, so he got the Nobel Prize for this. But in Christchurch Hospital in the 1970s, there was one of the first CT scanners in the world, probably the first CT scanner in the world other than the version that Godfrey Hounsfield had in London, that was actually capturing computer tomography data. So this is the first experimental setup. They put a phantom on, and this is the first reconstruction they got. It looks pretty messy, but within a few months they'd calibrated the system, and this is the type of images they were getting in 1975 from CT bones, CTs of sheep bones. So as you know, medical imaging has undergone severe significant transformation with MR, CT, and other modalities over the last 40 years, and it's really completely transformed the way medical imaging and diagnostics is performed around the world. So New Zealand actually had a pretty significant part to play in that, and still does. You may be aware of the Mars initiative, the multispectral CT initiative happening in Christchurch, so that's still ongoing in the Christchurch area. So I wanted to touch very briefly. I told Scott I'd talk as long as I could talk for 1 minute about what we do as an organisation. So we're continuing the tradition of Richard Bates. We're focused though on wound care. So how do we capture images of wounds and provide diagnostic information and track the healing of progression of wounds to really make a change to how healthcare is provided around the world. So our goal is to develop a camera, a three-dimensional camera that captures the image, and with that information can drive costs out of the healthcare system by providing more timely information to people involved in the care of the patient. So here's some examples of where the system is being used across multiple continents, and I'll talk about that soon. But the NHS, the UK, we're seeing significant adoption within the NHS, both within the care setting and also in community. The World Health Organization is using a product in Benin and Ghana in sub-Saharan Africa for developing therapies for a Buruli ulcer, which is a close relative of leprosy. And finally, on the right, we see something very local here. I thought I'd put that slide in. This is at CCDHB, and John, the patient, is Sarah, the nurse, is talking with John, the patient, and John credits our product Silhouette with saving his life. From he was a patient who had a serious pressure ulcer, and having that information allowed him to take control of his care and really start to psychologically and in terms of the care he was getting, take control. So it is making an impact. My last slide, I think, is one that I just wanted to put up to show where our customer base is. So we're a New Zealand company. We're based in Christchurch. 99.9% of our revenue is from offshore. So the US is our biggest market. The UK, Singapore, Israel, they're all significant market opportunities for us. We're working with the largest healthcare providers in the US and the UK, and 4 of the top 20 global pharmaceutical companies are customers of ours for using the product and clinical trials. But talking with innovation companies like ours in New Zealand, invariably it's a similar story, that companies find it very, very challenging to engage with the New Zealand healthcare system. It's much easier to engage with healthcare providers in Australia or Singapore or the UK. Yes, I'm almost finished, Scott. So my challenge, I guess, my 2 takeaways for this talk are, the Department of Veterans Affairs in Derby were 2 that I was going to particularly talk about, because there it's a telehealth opportunity that we're getting great opportunity for. But my 2 takeaways are for this group to be open to new innovations. Technology is changing. It's going to dramatically change the way we do every aspect of our lives, including healthcare, over the next decade. And also to challenge that we be open to collaboration from the government, from the DHBs, from industry partner, and this gets back to Scott's point. I think we can do much more to collaborate collaborate to really push forward the envelope of how we're providing better care for our patients in New Zealand and around the world. Thanks.